Hello students, so welcome to my channel Omni Gyan. So today we are going to learn the final part of the story, The Monkey's Paw, written by W. Jacobs. So story till now from part 2. Okay, so in part 2 of the video, what we see is that a stranger visits the White family, and the stranger is from Moe and Megan's company, and in that company we also know that Herbert White is actually uh, an employee of that company. Okay, and what does the stranger bring? He brings the news of Herbert's death. So we also know that Herbert was caught in a machine, okay, and Herbert died there instantly. So this person, this stranger, he came. When you look at the picture also, this person, he actually came to the White family. Why? To pay an amount as a compensation, okay. And the moment this man, this stranger, mentions the amount, Mr. White, as you can see in the picture, Mr. White, he faints. And why does he faint? Mr. White faints when he hears that the compensation amount is 200 pounds. If you remember, the previous night, Mr. White had asked, or rather wished, for 200 pounds on the advice of his son, Herbert White. But they had waited for some time the previous night, but nothing happened. Their wish was not granted, okay? So everybody was disappointed and they went to sleep. And next day, Herbert, as usual, he went for his work. And after some time, this man came and gave the news of Herbert's death. And he mentioned the amount that I have come from Moe and Megan's company to pay you a certain amount as a compensation. And when Mr. White asks what is the amount, so he says that it is 200 pounds. And hearing that amount, Mr. White faints because it is the same amount that he had asked as a wish. Okay, let's move on. So now the present story. Now the White family buried Herbert in the cemetery, which was around 2 miles away from the house. Everything was over so quickly. Okay, so everything was over very quickly. A young boy, Herbert, had died. Okay, the only son in the family. The White family could not believe at first. Obviously it was a shock. Okay, they were in a state of shock. So Mr. and Mrs. White were in a state of shock. Their only son Herbert was no more. Obviously it was a matter of great shock and grief because their only son Herbert was no more. He was no more alive. So the two old couple was all alone now. They had lost their only son. Okay, so after a week, one cold night, Mr. White suddenly got up from his sleep and saw that his wife was not on bed. She was standing at the window. Obviously, a mother cannot take the grief of her only son's death. It is obvious. Okay, so Mrs. White was standing near the window as Mr. White was sleeping, and Mr. White suddenly got up from his bed and saw that Mrs. White was not there on the bed. She was rather standing at the window and looking outside. Okay, Mr. White said, "Come back, you will get cold." And Mrs. White replied sadly that my son is feeling colder. Actually, how can a dead body feel colder? But the reply came from a mother. Okay, you must know this thing, that the reply came from a mother. A mother's heart is always very emotional. Okay, so she was saying that my son is feeling very cold. Okay, suddenly Mrs. White cried out, "The monkey's paw." Okay, she remembered something about the monkey's paw. What is that? Mr. White was puzzled and asked, "Why do you want the monkey's paw?" So suddenly Mr. White was taken aback and he asked, in a puzzled manner that why do you want the monkey's paw now? Okay, and it is because of the monkey's paw that so much has happened with us. We have lost our only son because of the monkey's paw. So why do you want the monkey's paw now? And Mrs. White shouted, where is the monkey's paw? I want it. We have 2 more wishes to get fulfilled. So Mrs. White said that only 1 wish has been granted. Obviously granted in a negative way, but it has been granted. So we have 2 more wishes. Remember, the monkey's paw grants how many wishes? 3 wishes. Okay, so we have 2 more wishes left. And Mr. White felt that something was going to be very bad. And he cried out, what? Wasn't all this enough? Cried out Mr. White that all this has happened with us. We have lost our only son. We are now all alone. Isn't that enough? What more do you want? Okay, what more misery do you want in our family now? But Mrs. White was adamant. Okay, no, I want my son back alive. So this is the thing that Mrs. White was planning, and that is why she had asked for the monkey's paw, that with the help of the monkey's paw they will go for the second wish, and the second wish would be bring back Herbert alive. Okay, so this was demanded by Mrs. White. You must ask. Now Mrs. White is telling her husband that you must ask the second wish for Herbert's life. His wife demanded in such a manner that Mr. White had no other way but to obey. But he warned Mrs. White of the consequences. Okay, so Mr. White could not say no, but he gave a warning to Mrs. White that see, 1 wish has already brought so much of misery. God knows what will happen if you go for the second wish, and that too the second wish is to bring back Herbert alive. Please don't do it. But Mrs. White was not going to listen to anything. So Mr. White tried to explain her that when Herbert's dead body was brought, he could only be recognized by his clothes. So you see, Herbert's dead body, when it was brought from the company Moy and Meggins, Herbert's dead body was completely damaged, mutilated. Okay, his face could not be recognized. It was only through his clothes that it could be recognized that this was Herbert. Otherwise, there was no chance of recognition. So his condition, the condition of the dead body was very bad. Okay, so it is 10 days since the burial took place. Mr. White went on requesting his wife, but to no use. And you imagine that when Herbert died, his body could not be recognized then, and it is now 10 days since his burial took place. Okay, Herbert's body was buried under the ground 10 days back, and after 10 days, if his son is brought back alive, can you imagine the condition of the body? The body will be completely mutilated with skins and muscles coming out. Okay, so Mr. White requested his wife that you will not be able to see such a damage, that you will not be able to see such a damaged body. But Mrs. White was adamant, and she said, I don't want to listen to anything. Bring my son back to me. I am his mother, and I won't have any problem even if I see the mutilated body. So wish. So in fact, Mrs. White gave warning to her husband and said that I don't want to listen to anything. You bring back my son, take the monkey's paw, and go for the second wish. And I am a mother. I am Herbert's mother. I will have no problem in seeing the mutilated, the damaged body of my son. So go for the second wish. This is my order. Okay, in such a manner, Mrs. White ordered her husband, Mr. White. But Mr. White was not happy at all, and he reluctantly, okay, he did not want it to, but what to do, you see, it was his wife's demand. So he took the monkey's paw in his hand and wished. What did he wish? I wish my son alive again. So you can look at the picture also. Mr. White is taking the monkey's paw in his hand and he is asking for the second wish. Okay, let's move on. So as he wished, his hand got twisted. If you remember, even at the first wish also, Mr. White had told his wife in the morning that my hand got twisted. But at that time, in part 1 of the story, you will see that. But at that time, Mr. White, when he said that my hand got twisted, nobody believed. And Mrs. White, she laughed at him and said that it is all Arabian Nights, magic things happening, and I don't believe in magic. But now it is the same Mrs. White who is believing in the monkey's paw and telling her husband to go for the second wish. Okay, so look at the irony. So as he wished, his hand got twisted and the monkey's paw fell from his hand. So as usual, when he wished for the second time, the monkey's paw fell from his hand got twisted. Mr. White's hand got twisted and the monkey's paw fell from his hand. And there was silence all around. Okay. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Mrs. White was sure it was Herbert, and Mrs. White was very happy that yes, there's a knocking at the door. So Herbert, my son, has come. So it was Herbert, her dead son, who had come back alive. Okay, so we are also sure, and Mr. Herbert and Mr. White and Mrs. White, they are also sure that Herbert had come back, and that too alive. Okay, and she hurried to open the door. You can look at the picture also. Okay, she hurried to open the door, but the bolt was stuck. So you can see this bolt here, right? This was stuck, it was not opening. Okay, and she called out for Mr. White and said, come, help me out to open the door, my Herbert has come. So she was shouting at Mr. White and saying that this bolt has stuck here. Okay, it is not opening. Come, help me, open the bolt. My son, my Herbert has come. Come on, open the door, I want to see my son. And Mr. White, who was completely nervous right at this moment, suddenly an idea struck Mr. White's brain. He looked for the monkey's paw. He looked for the monkey's paw because the monkey's paw had fallen on the ground. So again he looked for the monkey's paw which had fallen on the ground. And what did he do? And as Mrs. White was about to open the door, so the bolt was open, okay, and as the moment Mrs. White was about to open the door, that means Mr. White, he hurriedly took the monkey's paw in his hand again. So he took the monkey's paw in his hand again and wished aloud something. Now what is this something is not mentioned in the story. Now this is sure that Herbert was outside. Herbert was waiting outside. Herbert had come. He had come alive. And Mrs. White was about to open the door. At that point itself, Mr. White wished aloud something. And what is that something? I told you it is not mentioned in the story. Now, if you count, 2 wishes has been asked, and this is the third wish. This wish is the third one that Mr. White had now asked loudly. But what that third wish was, we do not know. Let's see. And when Mr. White asked the third wish, yes, the wish was granted. The wish was granted and the knocking suddenly stopped. So there was no knock at the door. And when Mrs. White opened the door, you can see the picture also. Mrs. White opened the door and there was no one outside. So Mrs. White opened the door where there was no one. Okay, there was no one, and the street lamp was flickering. So look at this street lamp. Okay, this street lamp was flickering. It was glowing outside, but Not a single person was there around. So the street lamp was flickering outside, and the street was quiet and empty. There was no one. So you can look at the picture, you can look at the street, it is completely empty. There is no one on the street, completely empty, the street light flickering. It was night time and the street was quiet and empty. There was no one outside. Okay, and Mrs. White was disappointed. And now they have no more wishes also left with them. All the 3 wishes have been granted. The monkey's paw was of no use to them now. So Herbert was gone. There was no one. So we can guess that the 3rd wish that Mr. White had asked for was that, let my son go back as usual to the cemetery and lie buried under the ground. Okay, lie buried under the ground. This was the 3rd wish that Mr. White had definitely asked for. And the story ends here, the monkey's paw. See how the story started so happily and the story ended such tragically. Okay, so this was all, dear students. We will meet again with a new story. Till then, next time, keep studying, keep your focus. Goodbye.